All right, good morning, everyone. I apologize for my delay. Welcome. Thank you all for being here. We are here for a very important cause, and I learned that this morning with a 40-week-old baby that passed away. So we are here, and I'm glad we're here. I want to start this morning with the minutes of the August meeting. Is there any additions or corrections to the August meeting? I'm going to say that there are not, and we need to approve them. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, same sign. All right. Continuing on to number 3, legislative affairs guiding principle. 10 a.m. I apologize, I make you a little late, but Mark, you're up.
All right, good morning, everybody. And I know we're all enjoying Mark starting every meeting talking about legislative affairs, but I think we've got to our solution point as well. So I think we'll be very excited with where we come on the discussion. And I do want to thank everybody that's been a part of that because it's been very enlightening for us. And really, we've had several state agency offices watching how we're developing process and looking for how they can use it as guiding for them as well. So very exciting there. So I'm here to present today what we arrived at after all that discussion and executive committee meetings and stakeholder feedback. Looking at our original discussion where we talked about building a legislative agenda, which again would be kind of a list of specific items that we would engage on. Really, as we talked, we realized what we were talking about more is having a set of guiding principles of how we would interact with legislative affairs that had to do with kids in our state. So a minor amendment to that, but I think it makes a lot of sense as we go through. So I'm going to talk about that today and talk about one other added policy piece that we thought about as we were going through that. So again, guiding principles is what we're looking at now instead of coming up with a specific list of engagement points. So a few basic things. We're going to go over the current practice a little bit, some of the different levels, some of the activities, and then again, have some discussion before we get into going through. So why are we doing guiding principles? As I said, that's what we really came through. And at the last meeting, I really felt we had a good sense around the table that everybody's in agreement of the type of activities we needed to be involved in, the tone and tenor of those activities. And it was much more about appropriately representing the commission moving forward. So let's go through some of the ones that we've drafted on that. Feel free to ask questions as we go along. But the key and largest one, of course, is that any legislative actions undertaken by the commission must focus on issues connected to our mission, vision, our overarching principles, strategic plan goals, and the core commission principle of fostering cooperation across branches of government and state agencies. And that last line is very specific to where we talked about what is the interaction when we have things where there's disagreement between agencies. That's not something where we take one side versus the other, but we look at where there's a point of cooperation that we can assist with, and we look at how we can help that discussion move forward, or we know when that's just not the point for us to be interacting. So next, defining that what those legislative actions would be, communications with legislators regarding legislation currently under consideration by the General Assembly. So this is written correspondence, meetings, and the more public part of that, of course, verbal or written testimony to a legislative committee. Legislative actions with a potential state agency impact will only take place in consultation with the agencies that are impacted. So if we're looking at a bill that has relationship or is written on behalf of Department of Health, for example, Dr. Weaver, Shane, and others that are involved there are going to be part of that discussion. It's not something that we simply say, well, the Children's Commission feels this way, here's how we're going to act. Because the Children's Commission feels the way our members do across that, again, spirit of cooperation. So we've got to be fully informed before we're acting. Legislative actions related to the work of a commission or subcommittee or a committee or subcommittee of the commission only take place when we speak with that committee or subcommittee. So if we're looking at commercial exploitation of children, we're going to talk to our subcommittee that has the expertise on that. I'm not simply going to say, hey, there's a bill here, it looks like one we should get involved in. There's going to be that point of consultation with our experts within the commission. We'll also make sure that when we're representing the commission, that these actions are going to be formed directly by the executive director or staff of the commission as delegated by myself. And this is important because a lot of us have different hats we have to wear, and we don't want anybody to get in that confused hat of who am I representing today and which group am I with. So when we want to use the voice of the commission, I will act as that voice, or I will appoint one of our staff to act as that voice. Definitely that doesn't preclude anybody from saying that they sit on the commission and what that role means. And how important that issue is to them. But as far as speaking on behalf of endorsing something for the commission, I will take on that role specifically. When we're looking at any testimony, while noting the commission's support or concern regarding the issue addressed by the legislation, we're going to stick to factual, impartial, educational information on the issue, right? This is never going to be opinion-based. This could be, we have something meaningful to add. Otherwise, there's not a reason for us to be speaking on that. And support or concern we'll try to keep that as limited as we can. So when we're looking at, for the purpose of identifying the category of testimony, so at the State House, if you're not familiar, they'll usually ask if you're in support, opposition, or neutral. Sometimes they like to take neutral off the form because they don't want everybody being neutral. But we're going to largely favor the neutral category because we're rarely going to be in the case to completely endorse a piece of legislation. There's going to be too much language in there, too many other pieces. So we're going to narrow our testimony to the parts that make sense for us, unless that legislation is 100% something that's gone through the commission channel or in complete alignment with the commission. So we don't want to get associated with stray language that might come in and out, or endorsing a bill in its totality that maybe gets amended later and now our name is attached to it with language we don't agree with, right? So we're going to be very careful and focused in those cases. So more going back to some of the discussions we've had before, looking at how we would vet doing legislative action. So we've got a few different options we talked about last time. But when we're talking about what happens live at session, I think that was still the concern area of how do we interact with live acting things. We have our general process going through the commission, but we also say when we need to be working directly between commission meetings, we will require vetting and unanimous approval of the commission executive committee, which consists of all three branches of state government and is bipartisan. And then we will first do that stage, and then we'll get vetting by the full commission. So this will be in the cases where we're actually able to get the issue up front of the commission first before we're interacting with it. Looking at legislative session, that's usually going to be December, February meetings where that's possible. February sometimes going to be pretty late in the game, so December is going to be very important. Say if there's something we know we'll be interacting with, let's make sure we have a discussion at our December meeting about those things. But looking at when we don't have time for that process, so something hits in mid-February that we can tell is definitely in alignment with, again, that core mission, vision, goals, and strategic plan objectives. What do we do in that case? So in that case, we will do the default of vetting through the full executive committee. And that also goes through, first, of course, I'm vetting it to make sure we do have that alignment. Executive committee approval. We can then act on it, and it does need to be brought back to the full commission as soon as possible. So if we do that action in January, we're reviewing that at the commission meeting in February to say what actions we did take. And in those cases, we're going to be even tighter on sticking to neutral testimony because we don't have the full commission endorsement to say we support this in totality. We don't want the executive committee to act as a complete proxy for full support of a piece of legislation. So we'd still be talking about the specific items within that legislation that ally closely with the commission, but sticking to a neutral piece of testimony in those cases. Okay, so that's the key process element, is having that part where we can do interim vetting through the executive committee until we can catch up with the full commission. And I will emphasize, I don't want that to be a regular process where we're doing like 20 bills that way, right? This is an important issue. Our voice is necessary and needed on it, and we have expertise or consultation services that we can add to aid in this piece of legislation. It is not just jumping into everything that we have an opinion on or that we feel we have an opinion on. We've got to be really careful about, again, staying to those core principles. That's about cooperation and facilitating roles across state government and state agencies. Right. Additional notes, monitoring and reporting, which we've done before. Any bills related to children, we're still going to keep doing that. And that's just keeping our bill watch list together and going through and making sure that our subcommittees are keeping us apprised of anything they think we should be watching. Some of those education bills that have all kinds of nuance that we don't know until they point out to us would be a great example of that. We're still going to keep tracking those things. And those would be ones that, of course, we can be doing some deep review. Maybe we look at the tracking document saying, do we need to elevate anything in February? So by the end of session, maybe we do need to jump in. And then again, that's been a standing activity since our creation. Now, another piece, informing legislators about the commission, our activities, ways that we act as a resource, that is not legislative action. That's legislative engagement. And we're going to cover that through our new process that will be the commission's legislative engagement agenda. So this will be setting benchmarks for our work during session that really is just introducing the role and what the commission can be doing to aid in sharing information, in bringing communication across agencies and different entities that need that, and be an expert resource where that's needed. So that's that introduction piece that we talked about a lot last time, that what I heard loud and clear is we all want more people to know about us and what we do. And at the State House in particular is a place where we need to get better at that. So this is where we'll set benchmarks. We're not going to cover this in great detail today, but I'm going to come up with a proposed slate of activities that I can present to the next meeting. But it'll be speaking to committees, getting where we get time to speak with some of the caucuses, interfacing with new legislators. So at least they've heard our name a couple of times and making sure that we're doing that. Ideally getting face-to-face meetings for those whenever possible, and looking at other opportunities to interface, such as when we do the Day of the Child presentation, or I know Representative Devon was working on setting up where we're going to be speaking to some of the committees that are directly related to family and children's services. So that will be something that we do review on an annual basis to say, where do we need to be that we aren't known well enough yet? And where do we keep reminding them that we're here and available to them? So that's a separate item. But I think an important distinction that we came along as we were vetting this process and saying the key element that everybody did want us to do is be more present. So that'll be kind of my marching orders of where I need to make sure I am during sessions so they're aware of us and our activities. Okay. Let me see, we're going backwards there for a second. Any potential legislative actions, we're recommending that those will be reviewed at December and February commission meetings. Those are good points to just look at the commencement of session, also be where maybe some of our legislators that are actively working on legislation have a little bit of the inside track of here's something that's coming that we need to be aware of, and we may need to be prepared to say this should be something the commission is highly attached to. Right. And then we don't have to use that interim mechanism of just the executive committee if we've got the heads up ahead of time on that. I know one item we've talked about heavily on that is some of the stuff going on with early childhood education and early childhood mental health and development. There's going to be probably a lot going on in that space during session. Right. It's not in our strategic plan directly. It's in there indirectly, but that'd be an example of something we can talk about in December and say, let's make sure that we have a firm understanding that we're going to be interacting there. And then again, recommending timing for setting that legislative engagement agenda also in December, where we have those benchmarks all set up to go. So that's what I have. So I think I've caught us up on time a little bit there, right? All right. But I know we've gone through a lot of this. I know I'm making a slight shift on kind of the angle that we're looking at here, but it makes sense because it gives us freedom where we need the freedom to interact, without removing our ability to really make sure that we're heavily vetting anything that we do. So again, anything that we interact with, we're going to do our best to make sure that we have a discussion in December and February about those things that happen in between. We'll go to the executive committee. I'll also be talking to our experts on the commission and other agency experts that might be impacted by that. And then we're going to return that to the commission in the form of an update where it can be decided if we'll continue or if we'll be doing even more in that space when we get to that next commission meeting. So we're really looking at approving that process and then approving the drafting of a legislative engagement agenda each December as well. So, any questions?
Any membership discussions? I just would have potentially one recommendation that we possibly move that February meeting up a little bit earlier towards the beginning of the month, potentially. If we know, see, we have some legislation that really needs to be vetted here. Anyone else have any comments? All right, then we need to approve the legislative affairs guiding principles. So.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. You're approving. Which is exciting when you're a legislator to know how the work that we do here is going to get to where it needs to go. So, okay, moving on to number 4, family and youth engagement. To explain, do you want to be to the one here and then you can go through a day in this room?
Hey, everybody.
Good morning.
So for those of you who know Stephanie, you know, it's a little bit of a downgrade for me to be up here instead of her. But good news, we've got Dejana on Zoom here. Hopefully we can get her to talk a little bit after I do. But in all seriousness, this Family and Youth Engagement Summit has been Dejana and Stephanie's baby. It's been their total product. We've been meeting with them weekly, and they've been the ones who have come up with all the content. They've come up with all the substance to it, and they've been so diligent with what we've done. So we're excited to share our progress on that, and we're excited to share, hopefully, after this meeting in the post-meeting dispatch, a registration link and all that stuff. So I'm going to go through kind of our tentative agenda, and we're going to go through kind of the process that we've gotten for our December summit. So as you see on your packets and on the screen, we've got a 2-day summit coming on December 1st and 2nd. We're looking at between like 10 a.m. and 2 or 10 to 1:30 each day. The first day we're kind of geared towards professionals, kind of the spaces we work in. And then the second day will be geared more towards people in the community, youth and families that we serve. So that's a little bit about kind of our day. And I'm going to go through what our agenda looks like so far. So this is tentative. We're still moving some things around, but this is what we've got. So we'll start on day 1 with some opening remarks from Mark. And we've got a keynote speaker, which Dejana will share a little bit about who our keynote speakers are. But we'll start with that, and then we'll move to a panel. Our panel will be from young adults with lived experience as youth, such as Dejana and Stephanie themselves and other people that we've networked with, where we'll have a panel of questions asking them about their experience, about what our systems have done well, about what our systems need to improve on, and about what professionals might need to hear in those spaces. We'll take a break. And then we'll transition a little bit to parents and families of those youth and their experience with our systems as well, and kind of get both sides of that coin and get their perspectives too. And then to end the day, we'll do a kind of a panel that'll be educational for professionals about ways we can, no matter how far along we are in the journey of engaging people with lived experience, to see what it takes to be an authentic professional. So then day 2, when we're looking at youth and families in the community, we'll have the opening remarks again, a different keynote speaker, and then we'll talk with some advocates that work with our community partners and a lot of people that contribute to the commission about what it took for them to become unmuted meaning what their advocacy journey entailed. We'll take a break, and then we'll have some of our legislators on a panel. I know we've gotten a few verbal commitments from our legislators in the room, but we'll obviously be relying on them to hopefully join us. We asked everybody last meeting. But we'll ask again when we send the link. No, we'll send it again, and we'll get the links out and everything and all the details to everybody as well. Yeah, for sure. And we'll definitely rely on you to network with other ones as well, so we can get a lot of questions, because a lot of the youth and families that we engage with often ask and don't know much about how do we contact our legislator? What does that look like? How do we get in touch with things like this? And so it'd be great to have you all there to talk with them about that. It's virtual. It's all on a platform. So hopefully we can get people from all across the state. And then at the end of the day, on the second day, hopefully we will have some people inspired to use their voice and experience, and have some professionals that are ready to hear that. And we're going to be able to kind of do a little bit of a marketing session about different opportunities that we are aware of where those youth and families can make their voice heard. So whether that's with us in the commission or other community partners and things like that, we'll have those people there to kind of do a little bit of selling on what they're prepared to engage with. So that's our rough agenda. I know Dejana's in the top corner of the screen there. It's very small. I'm going to have her go through her slides first and you'll be able to hear her. And then hopefully I can stop sharing the screen so you can see her face once she's done. Dejana, if you want to unmute and say hi, I'll stay up here and move the slides for you. And hopefully this works out okay.
Good morning, everyone. It's so good to see your beautiful faces. I'm so sorry that I couldn't make it in person, but we will make this work. So, like Mark said, we have been super busy since July planning the summit. It's been super exciting. I really feel like this year's summit, as all of them, but I really feel like this year's summit, we will be very intentional and informative about the things that we are hopefully the public take away. So the things that we've been working on for the summit so far, we've attended the Indiana Youth Advisory Board statewide meeting, recruiting some of the youth interested in our panels. We've networked with different agencies to get young people involved. We also all attended the DCS parent board meeting because, as he mentioned, there will be a panel for parents and families to engage and sort of share their experience. We interviewed potential keynotes and panel participant, and we've just been reaching out to young people for our panels. So super busy, a lot of networking. It's been super exciting. We've been able to connect with a lot of amazing youth, and we're still in the process of locking in. We have our keynote speakers locked in, but we're still in the process of locking in all of the youth for our panels because, we want it to be diverse. We want as many perspectives as we can have. So we're in the process of continuing to do that. Our day one keynote speaker, she's really amazing. She's out of Iowa. Her name is Kayla Powell. She works for the Iowa Department of Health and Human Services. She was also a former foster youth and a daughter and sibling to incarcerated individuals. And she's an award-winning foster youth and juvenile justice advocate, specializing in authentic youth and family engagement with systems. So super bright personality. She's super friendly. She's super informative. I think that you guys will really enjoy that. Our second keynote speaker, her name is Maida Barrios. Hopefully I said her name right. So she's also a former foster youth from Delaware. She received her master's in social work in 2023 from Delaware State University. She's a leader within Foster Club. She played a huge role in passing the House Bill 123 in her state of Delaware, and she served as a president for her state's Youth Advisory Council from 2017 to 2019. So if you guys notice, both of these speakers are from different states. And the reason why we did that is because we wanted speakers with, of course, we have a lot of experience keynote speakers here, but we also wanted to give a variety of, what barriers or strengths do these youth face in their states? What are the similarities? What are the differences? So and then we'll go into our panels. So this is going to be my favorite part. We have 6 panels that we will be doing. The first one will be our youth with lived experience. Like he said, it'll be that first day we'll have Kayla talking about her experience from a regular youth to a regular youth advocacy on her advocacy journey to how does that now look like a youth being in those professional spaces, like me and Steph, how we, did advocacy work, but then we had to also do that in professional spaces. What barriers did we face? What strengths, what could have been different? How were the professional spaces that we worked in, how were they receptive of us? How could they have been more receptive? So our next panel will be our parents and families with lived experiences. So we chose this panel because we feel like families aren't normally included often. And even though they are a huge part, you really don't hear too often spaces just including the perspective of the parent. So our goal for this panel was for parents, whether they have had children dealing with in the juvenile system, whether they have had children in DCS, to really give them an opportunity and space to share their perspective on what they experience while dealing with these, with our, state, with our professional spaces or entities, kind of giving them that space and opportunity. So how were you interacted with? Was it positive? What were some negatives? And just give them that safe space to really just share and be authentic about their experiences. So the third panel will be the authentic professionals, being an authentic professional, which will basically be, we'll be talking to people in professional spaces that are already familiar with youth engagement, and we'll sort of just give them the opportunity to share their success stories and our barriers that will better help inform our audience. Say if we have more people wanting to open nonprofits or throw events where they're dealing with youth engagement, this will be more so just a panel that gives those authentic professionals a chance to explain where basically their experience on how they're doing that, what barriers they have faced, their strengths, and it'll be just more so informative for anybody looking to go into that field. So then our last youth-led panel, we have 2 youth-led panels. Our last youth-led panels will be mutant advocates. And this will be more about like how to unmute ourselves individually. And it'll be advocates sharing like what made you be an advocate, what influenced you to decide one day, hey, I want to share my story and be comfortable with that. And again, it'll be so, what were some strengths, what were some barriers, and then just giving them that opportunity to share their experience. We also will be having an unmuting with legislators panel. And like Blaine said earlier, it'll more so be a Q&A of how to engage with legislators. Like you said, some people don't even know that you can even interact with our legislators. They don't know where the state house is. So it'll more so be like just a Q&A to show the public like they are approachable, and this is how you do so. Our last panel will be opportunities to unmute. And this will be more so giving professionals opportunity to share any upcoming events dealing with youth engagement that they want to share, or it'll be more so like a networking, any of the youth that we have there, if they want to connect or network with the authentic professionals. If they have any events coming up, it'll be so more like networking. So those are our 6 panels. Again, I'm super excited. I feel like it'll just be so interesting, and we just cover so many topics in depth, and the whole theme is unmuting your authenticity. So I feel like that is powerful within itself, and I feel like all of the topics that we'll discuss in our panels will go in depth really on that subject, but like from everyone's perspective. So really take a collective approach. The desired outcomes for this year's summit, we really would like inform change and just to bring awareness of sometimes just even being able, how it feels to be in someone else's shoes. Sometimes it's hard to put yourself in someone's shoes when you are in your position and your expectations and everything, but it's sometimes hard to see ourselves from another perspective. So really just an awareness of each other's position and how do we come together, better for these youth. So we would love systematic change with different organizations. There would be a vast knowledge of resources available. Like I said, we do have a lot of different entities at the table, a lot of different perspectives at the table. So there'd be just a sharing of knowledge that maybe people will walk away with that they didn't come with. So we will also like the stigma lowered. There are so many honestly, they're not always positive stigmas when it comes to dealing with the state. Sometimes people can be intimidated by the state, whether it be past experiences or just things that they've heard. So for our summit, we really just want the public and the families to see that we are really, as a state, trying to come together and really meet them where they are and meet their needs as families. We just really want voices to be heard and understanding of the barrier that system impacted children, youth, parents, and families face. And that is all for our 2003 summit. I hope to see you all there. And thank you for allowing me to present.
Thanks, Dejana, for coming today and talking about this. Like I said earlier, hopefully in our post-meeting dispatch message, we can get the link sent out for registration, and then we'll rely on all of you to pump that out to as many different networks that you have. We can get our attendance to this thing pretty strong. And like I said, we'll have updates on this stuff moving forward. We'll post this in every area that we can as we finalize what we're doing. So if you've got any questions for us, you've got Stephanie and Dejana's contacts up there. You obviously have Mark and I's contacts, and let me know if you have anything else. Thanks.
Thank you. I don't know if any of you tuned in last year, but it was an amazing summit. I enjoyed it so much and learned so much from that. Just the walk that these youth take or have taken, it was eye-opening, and I appreciate all the work that all of you have done to put this together. It is important for that information to come out. It is important for those youth to know that they belong. So just want to thank you for all that work. It's amazing. Does anyone else have any comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Dejana. I think this looks like a really wonderful summit. And I like the use of the word unmuting. I think that really implies something very significant. I liked your desired outcomes. I was just curious about, though, I think you said you were going to have a youth-led unmuting advocates. How does that work? How will youth will ask advocates questions?
Okay, so I guess I may have reworded that differently. It will be obviously a moderator asking youth, and I guess by youth led I meant sort of giving them the youth that space and opportunity to chime.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so that'll be.
So this will be a panel comprised primarily of youth who will be discussing their understanding of the advocacy role.
Not more so their journeys instead of their understandings. It'll be youth in our state that are advocates, and it'll be more so what made you become an advocate? What has been your journey as an advocate?
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so,
I got you. All right.
So,
thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry. So the first day
looks like a good summit.
Yeah. So I'm excited.
Thank you.
Thank you, Blaine. Thank you, Dejana. Good job. Proud of you. How's our baby doing? How's your baby doing?
I know, right? I'm actually gonna go get him. I'll be right back.
Sure, I'll put her up on the screen so we can see her better. Yeah.
So we can see the baby.
So it's exciting to see our youth and those that experience, right, that we're hearing from their voices. So, and our newest advocate here, Allie, it's her birthday today. So I just want to say happy birthday to Allie when you get time. So we continue to seek out wisdom from those that have lived the life, right? And we just have to have ears and be diligent. And so
Goodness.
The big boy. Say hi.
I like your dress. Oh, he's happy.
He's such a happy, just observative little baby. He's always smiling. So he'll be 4 months. He's actually 4 months today. So
Well, we miss you.
I miss you guys too. so much. So I'm just very grateful that Mark and Blaine still gave us the opportunity to be involved some way, somehow. So this has been super exciting to us. Or, I know it's been exciting to Stephanie. It's definitely been exciting to me. I'll tell her you guys said hi.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dejana.
Great, thank you so much, Dejana. Thank you also for sharing them. That's a bright point in everyone's day. And thank you again. I look forward to it. Please make time to at least listen to a portion of it. If you can't listen, I encourage you to tune in where you can, because it is worth it.
Now, how do we get the link? How, so you'll,
Blaine will email it to all of us.
okay,
So that we all have that information and share it with anyone you think would benefit
Okay.
from that. information. So, all right, moving on to number 5, commercial sexual exploitation of children subcommittee report. Welcome.
Thank you.
thank you.
Good morning. My name is Kim Dowling. I'm the judge in Delaware Circuit Court number 2, and I chair the CSEC subcommittee. So I want to talk a little bit about legislation today, but I want to give you a little bit of some background, a refresher for those who have heard me speak before, maybe some new information for those of you who have not. So when you see CSEC on the committee name, on my slides, that stands for the commercial sexual exploitation of children. It is human trafficking, but I like to use CSEC because I don't want people to get the mistaken thought about the movie Taken. I mean, a lot of people think about that movie when we talk about trafficking, and that's really not what we're talking about. So we use CSEC to kind of give it a different view, a different definition. So we deal with both sex and labor trafficking. Mainly when I train, I talk mostly about sex trafficking, but Department of Child Services has told me recently that we've seen an uptick in the number of labor trafficking cases. So I definitely include definitions on both, and know that the information that I share, the things that we train on, really apply to both. So sex trafficking for juveniles, and that's really what I talk mostly about, will be when a person is under the age of 18 and they are induced to perform a commercial sex act. It can be an adult, but if it's an adult, then the state has to prove that they were induced by force, fraud, or coercion. If it's a juvenile, they do not have to prove any of those 3 things. Labor trafficking is pretty much what it sounds like: recruiting, harboring, transporting, providing, obtaining a person for labor or services. Again, if it's an adult, they have to use and show force, fraud, or coercion. But if it's a juvenile, then they do not have to prove that. So our main adult sex trafficking statute in Indiana is 3542 3.5 1.1. And that's if a person knowingly or intentionally uses force, threat of force, coercion, or fraud. That's where you see that wording. That's when you know that that's an adult. To harbor, transport an individual with the intent of causing them to marry another person, engage in prostitution, or participate in sexual conduct. It's a level 4 felony, which is a mid-level felony if we're talking about an adult. Our juvenile sex trafficking statute is 3542 3.5 1.2. And that's if they are recruiting someone who is less than 18 with the intent of causing them to engage in prostitution or juvenile prostitution, perform an incident that includes sexual conduct in violation of the child exploitation statutes. If it's a juvenile, then it raises to a level 3 felony. So it's 1 step higher than if an adult is involved. Don't get sidetracked also by the words prostitution or juvenile prostitution. There is no such thing as juvenile prostitution in Indiana. They used that language, I think, for there to be a general understanding of what we're talking about, but juveniles in Indiana cannot be charged with prostitution. We're a safe harbor state. And I'll talk about that in just a second. There are defenses set out in the statute. So human trafficking is tied as the 2nd largest and fastest growing criminal industry in the world, just behind the drug trade. $150 billion a year generated in the United States by the human trafficking industry. And when I speak to larger groups and I talk about, the 2nd largest and fastest growing criminal industry, my question to the group usually is, why do you think that is? And so for today's purposes, we'll skip the question and answer session. And I will just tell you it's because children are a reusable commodity. So if you think about the drug trade, we're talking about people either buying the stuff to make the drugs and then selling them, or they're buying the drugs and selling the drugs and then putting the money back in. When we're talking about human trafficking, they're able to lure children into the industry without paying anything at all. It's free to them. They create a stable of young children. It can be girls or boys or both. And then everything they make off of that is pure profit. So they might buy that child some McDonald's, or they might get their hair done or get their nails done, but everything that they make off of that is profit. So about 1.6 million children are runaways each year in the United States. And I'm going to talk about that statistic here in just a second. But 83% of sex trafficking victims found in the US were US citizens. And so sometimes when I teach, people say, well, you know, we're talking about foreign born children being brought into the United States. That is not true. We're talking about US children being trafficked in the United States. We're talking about Hoosier children who are being trafficked in Indiana. And sometimes they're trafficked by their own parents or their own family, and sometimes they're trafficked by perpetrators. And so it varies, it differs. It's one of the reasons that this is such a challenging problem, is because it looks different depending on where you are, even within counties within our state. So in Delaware County, where I'm from, we might see more familial types of trafficking. So trafficking by their parent or their guardian, maybe by foster parents for drugs or for rent money, anything of value. But if you're in a larger county like Marion County or Lake County, you might see more gang-related trafficking. You might be seeing more perpetrator-related trafficking when we have events that occur in the state. So it could be sporting events, but it doesn't have to be. It can be any kind of conference or convention where you have a large number of people coming into your state. You will see increases in the number of trafficking. So 50% of the children involved have previously been involved in the foster care system. 80% of them have been previously involved with the Department of Child Services system. And their NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, estimate that we have approximately 100 to 300,000 children, US children, victims of trafficking each year. I will tell you that's on the low side. And the reason I know that's on the low side is because those numbers come from the reports of children who are charged with prostitution in the United States each year. We have at least 13 states that are safe harbor states. In those states, children can't be charged with prostitution. When we're talking about children being trafficked, we're talking about kids being sold for sex. They can't consent to a sexual relationship. And so when I see cases in Delaware County, when I've talked with other judges in other counties of children who we are identifying as potential victims of trafficking, we see them coming in either on the DCS side or on the probation side for either acting out in some fashion, or they're coming in on the DCS side for reasons that DCS might be seeing other reasons, like neglect of the parents, drugs involved, those kinds of things, where they haven't even identified trafficking as one of the potential reasons yet. So when I told you that we had that many runaways, 1.6 million children, 1 in 3 of them are recruited into the trafficking industry within 48 hours of leaving home. So I'm not talking about a kid who's just gone for an hour or two. I'm talking about a child who runs away and is gone for, let's say, 24 hours or more. And so within 48 hours, we have 1/3 of them being recruited into the industry. And it happens in various different ways. It can happen on the street, but most typically is going to happen through social media and on the internet. The average age of the child entering the sex trade depends on the type of trafficking involved. So if it's familial trafficking, if it's families who are trafficking their children, the average age is 12 to 14. If it's a perpetrator, then the average age raises and it's more like 14 to 16. For boys, we see the average age being a little bit younger, being more like 11 to 13. And I would tell you that, one of my frustrations has been, we tend to find girls as victims more often than we find the boys. And I couldn't figure out why for the longest time. And so in working with the FBI, they taught me that the typical situation that we have for boys is their first sexual encounter is through online gaming. And so what typically will happen is they're playing through a gaming console, and I am not a techie, so I'm just telling you what I've learned, but I don't know a lot about it. So they're playing through online gaming. There's a chat feature on the online game. They're talking with the person that they're playing with online. They think it's another child around their age. And so they're chatting back and forth. And so the perpetrator says, my chat feature isn't working. Can we text? And so then they exchange cell phone numbers. And so then once they exchange cell phone numbers and they're texting back and forth, the other person says, hey, send me a picture of yourself. So they send just a regular, headshot. And so then the other person will say, hey, you're really cute. Maybe that, they're pretending to be the opposite sex. And so then they ask for a nude picture, and the boy will then send a nude picture of themselves. And once they've done that, the perpetrator has them, because the location services on the phone are on. And within 5 minutes, approximately, that person now knows where that child lives, where they go to school, they have their Facebook account. And then they start demanding videos of that child. And if the child doesn't cooperate, they tell them they're going to post the nude on their Facebook page. They're going to release it to everybody at school. Boys are going to tend to be, much more reticent about going to their parents and admitting what they've done than a girl would be. And it's also why we see the increased number of suicides among boys when this type of thing happens. So where does it happen? This map is based on phone calls to the human trafficking hotline group called Polaris put this together. And so, you can see, obviously, the colors match what you would see like on a weather map, right? So the really high intensity orange colors are where we have a lot more, you guys okay? Are where we have, the highest number of calls. And you can see Indiana is in kind of one of those, high yellow, red, orange blobs. And, the question is why? So while I don't want you to think transportation is required, look at the map of highways in the United States and then compare that to where the calls typically are. So are children transported? Yes. When I got elected in 2012, I took the bench in January 2013. And I knew then that we had in Delaware County had already had 2 children taken to Chicago for the purposes of being trafficked. And so transportation is a component, but it is not required. And, I don't want people to get the misconception that transportation is required, because it's not. We have Hoosier children being trafficked in Indiana. They're not being taken anywhere. The other thing that I learned when I first started doing this work was that Muncie, Indiana, where people could not believe, that human trafficking existed. We had enough business in Muncie, enough trafficking going on, enough selling of children going on, that we had our own page on Backpage.com. So, when judges looked at me kind of like I had 2 heads and, this isn't happening, or it's not happening in rural counties in Indiana, they are sorely mistaken. It's happening everywhere in the state. So the big caveat is that victims will not self-identify. And that was my biggest mistake, my biggest misconception when I started doing this work. I thought if a child, if we identified a child that was being trafficked, they'd be like, oh, thank you, for rescuing me. Okay, so that was the first thing that I learned that I was mistaken about. So they don't see themselves as victims. And one of the things I learned from a victim advocate early on was that being trafficked is probably not the worst thing that's ever happened to this child. And that's a hard thing to wrap your brain around. So they won't tell you that they're a victim. They see their perpetrator as their, uncle. It might be a family member, blood's thicker than water. They are not going to rat their family out. And they see their perpetrator as their boyfriend. A lot of times I will see tattoos on the neck or across the chest that will either be a male name or say daddy. I had an adult in my court, I don't know, it's probably been a couple of years ago, and she had the word pimp tattooed across her neck. And when I questioned her about it, she said it stood for power in my prayer. So she had a story and she was sticking to it. But I knew her trafficker was in my courtroom. They're typically there, they're looking to get them out. So the consumer funds human trafficking by purchasing goods and services, and they're often unaware that someone is suffering. But consumers drive human trafficking. I will tell you that there were reverse operations run in Delaware County several years ago, where they placed some fake ads on the internet. And within 12 hours of placing those ads, we had over 400 offers to purchase. And there was a professor from the University of Ohio, Miami, however you say the name of that, I always get it mixed up, who drove 2 hours thinking that they were going to purchase sex with a juvenile. And it was quite clear that they knew that this child was underage. Thankfully, a couple of years ago, legislation was passed in Indiana that raised the level of felony for purchasing sex to a level 4 from a level 5. But I'll tell you, it took us 3 years to get that done. And that was frustrating to me. So what I'm focusing on now when I talk to groups is the critical role for healthcare providers. So where I told you that 50% have been involved in the foster care system and 80% with DCS, 90%, close to 90% of these children see a healthcare provider while they are being trafficked. And so it's crucial that we get to the healthcare industry and start training nurses and doctors about trafficking and what the red flags are, what to look for. And so one of the nurses that I train with put this slide together, and she talks when we go and teach to medical providers, she talks about, you know, the things to look for and how to document your notes and, you know, how best to maybe try and take that child down the hallway for a test and contact DCS, contact law enforcement. Nurses, here's one of the things though that I've learned is, and I'm going to talk about some legislation in just a second, but nurses in Indiana, so nurses who have received basic nursing degrees, not the advanced degrees, so not SANE nurses, I'll talk about those, but nurses in Indiana are not required to complete any continuing medical education hours post-graduation. Realtors are, lawyers are, judges are, nurses are not. And that was shocking to me. There is no agency currently in place in Indiana to monitor any hours, you know, and as a consumer, that's concerning to me. But specialized nurses, like SANE nurses, are required to complete post-graduation training hours, but that legislation was passed a couple of years ago, and it was to go into effect this year, but they still have not put, nurses have not put any agency in place to monitor those hours, and they're put on an honor system. So that's, to me, a huge issue and part of what we're going to talk about. So we have developed some quick indicator tools, and I've given you a copy of the healthcare quick indicator tool today. So if you want to grab that, it's a little card that we passed out. And we have these tools for educators, for law enforcement, for juvenile probation, and for the healthcare industry. So on the front side, where it says call DCS immediately if any one of those items would indicate to a healthcare professional they should call DCS, just one of those items. And then on the back side, we tell them to use their common sense, and if 2 or more of those are in place, then they should call DCS. But we also tell them to use kind of their guts, and if anything seems out of place, hinky, whatever, then they should call Department of Child Services and make a report. For juvenile probation, we have updated their screening tool, and that's now available to them on Insight. And we have been conducting regional trainings for the past year. 5 of those have been completed. 1 is scheduled in October next week, and then 1 is just scheduled for December in Lake County. I'm not sure how they talked me into going to Lake County in December, but they did. And we have 1 left to be scheduled in Southern Indiana. So we talked about the tool. So let's talk about legislation. A couple of years ago, and I'm sorry, Senator Donato had to leave, but a couple of years ago, Senator Donato was gracious enough to help us with some legislation we had hoped would be passed regarding the Chin statute. So if a child is alleged to be a child that's a victim of human trafficking, the Chin's petition can be filed as a 3.5. But when that legislation was passed, which was probably 2015, 16-ish. The language that's in the statute requires that child to admit or deny the allegation. And we know from our research and from the work that we've done that that child is not going to admit or deny the allegation. And so then the question is, well, how can we fix that? And how can we still make sure that that child's rights are protected? And so what we had asked Senator Donato to do, and she did, was to propose legislation that would remove the language to admit or deny, but instead, if a 3.5 is filed, the child would be appointed counsel immediately. And so they would have their own public defender to represent their interests. We were proposing this legislation at the same time that we were working on that purchasing statute that I talked about. And so the attention really got focused on the purchasing statute and did not get focused so much on this statute. And so we didn't even get a hearing on it. But the Children's Commission did endorse the statute, proposed statute at the time. And so we would like to renew our efforts to change that statute. So that's our first request. And you've got some information there that talks a little bit more about it. And I did bring, it was Senate Bill 339. It was in 2021. And so I brought that with me today too. Our second request is that, and we're working with Senator Kreider on this bill, is that we want to propose that all nurses receive a minimum of 1 to 2 hours of training per year in trauma-informed care, which would include human trafficking. We have challenges in that, as I talked about. There's no current training requirements. There's no agency in place to monitor. And, I've talked with Mark a little bit about this. We talked in our committee meeting about it. We want to stay in our lane. And so I think there are some challenges there. Senator Kreider has indicated he's got someone working on the bill, but he's also indicated we've got a short session coming up and he doesn't know how many bills total he'll end up with. And so he's not positive that he's going to submit this as one of his final bills, but it's a possibility. So then I also have some resources for you. And then if you believe someone is a victim of human trafficking, numbers that you can call. So does anybody have any questions?
Wow, that was just,
It's a lot.
I don't know how you deal with it. But I was always under the, I guess I was the perception that trafficking did provide some kind of transportation. So a child could be trafficked by their familiar member like
Mhm.
every night
Most
without,
children, Yep.
taking them down around the corner and then bringing
Right.
them home and around the corner and bringing them home.
right. So most children who are trafficked between, I think the statistics are between 7 to 10 times per night, 6 nights or days per week.
Oh, wow.
There's a really high rate of young, deaths, sometimes drug related, sometimes suicide, sometimes just due to the danger of, the situations that they find themselves in. So yeah, it's overwhelming, to be honest.
So 87% of them see a healthcare provider. Is that the
Mhm.
trafficked person gets them there or do they go there on their own?
Sure, it's both. So, sometimes it can be the perpetrator because, whatever it is that's going on with them, whatever injury they're suffering, it might be some type of, sexually transmitted disease. But they may take them, but it also may be family taking them. Family may not have any idea what's going on. There are a lot of times if there's perpetrator trafficking involved, and I've talked with survivors who were being trafficked by a neighbor, and the neighbor was threatening to also traffic the younger sibling if this child didn't do what they were required to do. And so she or he may be having some health issues related to that. The parents don't even know. And so, but they take them to the doctor. So it looks different. And that's one reason it's so challenging. It's challenging for the system. It's challenging for law enforcement. It's a lot. And on the, I don't want to say on the bright side, on the good side, I've been able locally for my county, I have trained our open door clinic twice. I have trained Ball Hospital previously. I have another training scheduled in December for the entire hospital, whoever can attend. I've gotten into some of the medical schools because I think if we can get this on, included within the, either classes they're offered or whatever their curriculum is, and we can get them while they're in school, then we've got a good base that we're starting with. So I've trained once in Fort Wayne at their medical school. I'm scheduled to train there again in December. I've trained but when I say trained, it's student interest groups. It's not classrooms. And then I've trained at the Ball, their medical students once, that was last year. And then I've trained IU once. So, but when I've emailed and to the person in charge of curriculum and said, we need to include trauma-informed care, yeah, I get no response,
Yeah.
zero.
It's hard to get them to change it.
It's very hard. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
First, I just want to point out for those of you who don't know that Judge Dowling is renowned expert in this area, and all because of the countless hours that she spends on this, not only in Indiana, but also nationwide. So
Thank you.
I would just wager that this is a second full-time job for Judge Dowling, this particular passion project. And so first, I appreciate you.
Thank you.
And everything that you do.
Thank you.
Second thing is a question, and that is on the subcommittee, is healthcare represented, or are there other people that could be pulled in, whether that be faculty from medical schools or others that we could perhaps invite to help with the work groups?
We currently have a SANE nurse. We have a SANE nurse. We have another nurse who's working on her PhD, and she's working with me on legislation with Senator Kreider. It would be extremely helpful if we could get somebody from the medical school on a doctor, but it's super hard. But yeah, that would be very helpful. And those nurses do help me with some of the trainings, but I mean, I'm one person, and so trying to even so as we've done the regional trainings, what I've tried to express to the judges who have, taken those regional trainings on is say, if you can get me contacts with even the hospital, if we can get to the emergency room folks, if we can get to people who do pediatrics and train, then, I travel, I will find time in my schedule, but I also rely on some of those nurses, and sometimes they'll travel for me and do some of the trainings. Melissa Arvin, who's here, has been amazing. She's our staff attorney and does all the domestic violence stuff for the Supreme Court. And so she's assigned to our committee. And so she's done some of the trainings for me as well if I can't go. So
I'm just wondering if any of the commission members have thoughts on those connections that could help with this project, because clearly this is way more prevalent than any of us, I think, care to think about.
It is.
And I've been sitting here watching everyone's visceral reactions to this.
yep.
So we can do better. I
One
think.
one of the other things I think is key to this, and that I would really, I've worked on and I've tried to do, and I just haven't been able to get there, is I need to train legislators more on this, because there's a lot of legislation, and I'm looking at you because everybody else is gone. I know, but sorry, Senator, but it's difficult. And right before COVID, I was scheduled to speak to the Women's Power Caucus, and then COVID hit and everything fell apart.
Oh, we need to reschedule that.
And we do. Thank you. And so, please, my email's on there. Please email me, and I'm happy to do that. Now, when I was scheduled to speak, I was like, how long do I get? And they said 10 minutes. And I've already been speaking 30. So, this is not something I can
Okay.
cover quickly, but I will take whatever time I can get.
We usually meet for an hour.
I'll take whatever you'll give me.
Okay.
But I think, legislators learning about this is key, because then when we are looking at some of this legislation, when you see a human trafficking bill come through, then it catches your attention, and you want to look at that and read it, because we know that our children are suffering if we don't work on this legislation. I met yesterday, Melissa and I did, with a couple other people on our committee with Shared Hope International. And they do amazing work on an international level, dealing with human trafficking. And back when I first started this work, Indiana had a D or an F when it came to the work, legislation basically that we had in place to deal with trafficking and survivors. So we worked really hard and we got ourselves up to, I think it was either a C+ or a B-. I was proud of the work that we did. Well, when I looked at the report card last year, we're back to an F. And I was like, okay, let's get back with shared hope and find out what's going on. So we met with them yesterday. They've sent us some more information. They want to be helpful to us. They want to make suggestions on work that we can do. And so I'll be going back to Representative McNamara, Senator Kreider, anybody who's interested in helping us with this to kind of make more advances in our legislation to address this. It won't be this year, but next year we will.
Is DCS has a human trafficking department or division, or
They
have like one or two people?
They
working there?
have a coordinator and they've, I think already hired someone else. They approved someone else and that person I think has been hired now. She does have other duties. And so her time is split between those other things and trafficking. But Yvonne is an amazing person and she was the right person to hire when DCS was looking to hire this person. She's very knowledgeable. I think that, I'll tell you one of my frustrations is that I get a lot of reports that when calls are made to the hotline, they're screened out. And a lot of that seems to be related to if they're already a part of the probation side of the system, then DCS will say, well, they're in probation, so, we don't need to be involved too. We also get a lot of pushback yet today on kids who I believe are dual status. I think human trafficking is like the prime, it's like dual status was made for human trafficking cases because we have kids who need services. They may be already involved in the DCS side. They may be acting out in some way. That's usually what I see. And so if we could put them into dual status mode, I think we would be able to make a lot more progress. But the reports I get are still that we get a lot of pushback when we want to make kids dual status. And I'm just not really sure why that is. And I mean, maybe that's a conversation we can have about how we can work on that and make that better.
No, that'd be a good conversation to have.
I think so
I'd like
too.
to learn more.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, I think that would be a good conversation, because I don't even really understand what that means exactly.
The dual status?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's when a kid is on the probation side of the system and the DCS side of the
So, on
system.
Criminal justice side and the DCS side.
Yeah, and to be,
Well, we already have dual status then, don't we?
we do, it's just not utilized the way it should be utilized.
Then
There's
we
just a lot of
probably need to talk
pushback.
about that
We
then.
do. I think we can make it better. And, I mean, kudos to Indiana. We're one of the few states that has dual status. When I talk with other judges in other states, they're like, you have what? Yeah, we do, but we have to figure out how to use it better. Any other questions?
God bless you.
Thank you. Thanks. It's good work. If I wasn't a judge, I wouldn't have the opportunities to work on that I do. And so I'm thankful for that.
Well, thank you for presenting and
Thank you.
on behalf of our legislators that had to leave to go to a child
Yep.
services meeting. I can say I regularly get calls from them on this exact topic saying, we've got to figure out what to do.
Right. Yeah.
And the answer is always going to be more.
Yeah. Right.
Oh.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
It's never going to go away. It's always going to be here. We just have to keep working on it.
Yeah. Wonderful.
thank you all. Mhm.
And with Senator Donato leaving, I have a few more items, but I did want to highlight from that presentation, we had that come directly after the legislative affairs update. Specifically because one of those items, the CHIN's 3.5 items, has been approved by the commission in the past as a recommendation to go forward and work towards legislation, making that happen. So that's something that is kind of still a live item that we haven't brought full circle yet. So that would be a prime example of something we would work on going forward, whether it's next session or the session after going into that. The example of trauma-informed care for nurses and looking at how we bring in that human trafficking training there too would be an example of at least an issue that if there's in a bill that we can talk about the need to make sure that our medical professionals who often interface with these young people are in a better position to identify and react when that happens. So one is a very specific item that we can say, let's push forward and try to make sure that legislation eventually happens in the right way. And the other is going to be one where maybe we're more of a resource to say, how do we get the right people at the table to figure out the right way to bring in that training to our medical professionals. Right, so good timing for exactly what we're talking about getting more involved there. All right, so to segue into a couple more things, we do have our next meeting, our December meeting. We moved that earlier in the month to December 6th. And no, that wasn't just to make room for my honeymoon, it's just bonus. But no, mainly making sure that we have high participation at that one. So that meeting is going to have a few different things at it. We're going to be talking about the youth risk behavior survey.
Yeah.
And going into more detail on that. Dr. Weaver, who couldn't be here today, wanted to be a part of that presentation, so she'll be leading that up. We'll also be highlighting some of our state prevention services, some of the stuff going on with programs like Community Partners, Healthy Families, and some of our other family resource centers and new models that are coming through there as well. And then we'll have highlights about the ongoing work of our 4 different task forces that are working where they're at and forming recommendations, others that might be at how they're trying to make sure that their task force is working more efficiently and recruiting the right experts to get good recommendations up front of everybody. So that'll be a part of that next meeting. I'll definitely be a slightly more optimistic topic than today, but we have to cover both sides of these issues. Human trafficking is a very, very difficult one, but coming in, talking about prevention resources and what we can do to get families engaged, and where we can be working with them and putting some more factors of resiliency in place is equally important there. We are down 1 youth representative, and we're hoping we'll have a new one to confirm at that next meeting as well. So we're doing some final vetting on that, and hopefully we'll be introducing you to them when that goes through. The big thing, though, is following that December meeting, we're going to have a reception afterwards where we're going to invite all of our task force members, volunteers, and any member of the public or state agency that wants to just come and do a little meet and greet on the commission and what we're about. And yes, we will have food for that. I don't know if anybody wants to be a part of the voting process. We're between Mexican and Italian, which I know is always a tough discussion to have. That'll be right next door, right after the meeting. So we'll make sure we give you separate information so you can circulate and invite to anybody else that you think just wants to learn more about the commission, what we do, how they can be involved, whether it's as a supporter or somebody that watches the meetings or joining a subcommittee, committee, or task force, and really trying to, again, elevate the work of the commission to a few new eyes and ears as we're moving forward into the next year. Those are the key elements of my update moving forward. I do have on the agenda where I put down some proposed times for our meetings next year. Per Senator Donato, when she left, said we really need to maybe look at bumping up that February one. So looking at those dates, do we have any thoughts on moving up to the first Wednesday in February, which would be the 7th?
I would be okay with that.
Okay. And I know for our legislators, it's always a gamble what's going on during session time. We understand that, but we know they make a commitment to be here as much as they can. So why don't we move that up so we have time that if there's some final interactions, we want to have a legislation with it being a short session this coming year, that we're able to have at least a little time to be able to do that if necessary. So go and bump that up. Any other thoughts on the other proposed meeting dates there? All right, well, that's all I have, and myself standing in for the senator. I will ask if anybody has a motion to adjourn us for today.
So we.
Second.
One clarification, when we did the minutes, was there a motion on that?
Yes.
There was a motion?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so adjourn.